Hi everyone and welcome back to Hobby Rocks. It's Tracy here and this is my second tutorial that's for knitting, and I'm going to show you a few stitches. So as I mentioned in my last video, these are pretty ancient, these needles, and I promise I'll try to stop calling them hooks. And I know there's, oh, I'm still zoomed. I know there's a lot of crocheters that say needle, so I guess it's just redressing the balance. But these are pretty old, as I said. These were my mum's, and so you get these, which are kind of like metal coated. They're very much like the very old crochet hooks that used to be around, and they're usually by a brand called Millwood. These ones, because they get up in a size, they tend to be more hollow and make a lovely click noise that my dad used to really hate. And then she had some bamboos, but I never really get on with the bamboos. I think the more modern bamboo ones are very slippy, and I'll try them, but I haven't so far. Anyway, these are the stitches that we cast on in the previous video. I've got 20 here, and I'm going to show you the first stitch, and I might zoom just a little bit, but I don't want to go off camera. And this is the knit stitch. So what we do is we insert our needle, yeah, I've got it right, into that stitch. Let's grab the yarn. It's very difficult because I don't hold it like this normally. And we yarn over and bring that forward to bring the stitch through, and then we just take it off. Now it's always tighter on the first row because we're on the cast on row. So we do that again. We're going to insert that needle into that stitch, yarn over, and by bringing this through, we'll grab that stitch and we just take it off. We're going to do that again. And this is the knit stitch. It can be, if you do just stocking stitch, which I believe across the pond is called stockinette, then it can curl from the edges unless you do a few different stitches at the end. But for now, we're just going to concentrate on learning the stitches. That is as simple as it gets. Insert it into the stitch, yarn over, and as you bring that through, you're catching that yarn and you bring it through and take it off, and you just carry on with the knit stitch to the end. And this is where I wish I hadn't done my foundation so tight. I'm cooking now. I don't usually hold it like this. It's quite off-putting for me. It's nice and simple. Just don't drop a stitch, because then we're into trying to pick it up and until you know what you're doing. That's not too easy. It's curling around my needle a little, but don't worry about that. Just make sure you go into the stitch, yarn over, bring it through. Last one should be easy because it's baggier. And there we go. So we've done our first row of knit stitches. Okay, so if I turn that, so that was the first, that's the right way. You can see we've created all these little V's. You can see them there. Just a little row of little V's, which if we turn to the side which we are now working on, the tail's getting in the way, we've created this bump. So this bump is what I was talking about here. It's a purl bump. The opposite side of a knit stitch is a purl stitch. So knit stitch on every row will produce something called garter stitch. So let's pull out some yarn. I've got some pulled out. And we will do that and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so we're going to insert into that stitch, yarn over just as we were, and do exactly the same thing. And it feels a little different because you're going in right by that bump. So don't worry, don't get into the bump. Just make sure you go cleanly through that stitch. It's not until I get into a few rows that I can actually... Did I go off camera then? I hope not. I'll try not to do that. It's because I'm zoomed. Let's unzoom. There we go. So we want them fairly close to the end, but not too close. Now I find modern knitting needles are not that great for me because they have very long points. These old fogey ones, they don't. They have a very short stubby point. And that works great for me because I was taught my mum's way, and that means I work quite close to the edge of the actual knitting needle. I don't push it in very far. But with a lot of the modern knitting needles, the points are very, very long and tapered. Now, if you have to bring that back a little bit up the needle, then do, because otherwise it starts to bunch up and it gets very difficult for you to work with, and it gets in your way. And that's when mistakes can happen. So take it nice and slow. Last one's always tricky. Have I gone in properly? Yeah. Because I've got a camera in front of me. Okay, so that we have now completed the second one, and you can see we've got a row of V's and then our little bump. Turn it over the other side and we've got 2 rows of bumps. Okay, let's do another row. Into the first one, and we'll start off just doing the rows of knit stitch. So this stitch doesn't make it curl at the sides. This and garter stitch doesn't make, this is garter stitch. This and knit and purl, ribbon, what's the name of the stitch? Moss stitch, which is actually my favourite stitch, moss stitch. None of them curl. It's just the stocking stitch or stockinette stitch that kind of does. And the way around that is to do another kind of stitch like a purl at first. But of course it does create a bumpy edge, which I'm not really keen on. It's okay if you're sewing it, but pull some yarn. If you're sewing up your edges, if it's a garment and you're sewing them together, it's not really a problem because that will pull them out. But if it's a scarf you're working on or something like that, you don't really want it curling up, which is a bit of a pain. Okay, so we're back at the end. So we should start being able to see the way the stitch looks. Okay. Let's pull it so we're not going to lose it. There we go. We're getting a row of bumps that way, and we're getting our rows of bumps this way. We'll do a few more rows, and then that way we should start seeing the pattern, or the way the stitch works up. I made a very long tail, didn't I? So I'm going to do this one row with you, and then I will pause it and do a few more, and then we can come back and have a look at it, because otherwise it'd just be a bit boring watching me do row after row of knit stitch. Sorry about the click. It's just hitting a little bit. Try not to do it, but then, whoa, it's working. If I hold it wrong, I might lose a stitch, and I don't want to do that. Teach you how to drop stitches. It's not really the way. It is not the way. Right, nearly at the end. Last one. Nope, my table is getting in the way. My camera is getting in the way. There we are, last one. Okay. Now we should see it start moving down. And this is how we're gonna look. That will be our pattern. On the reverse, that's usually the reverse of anything we make anyway. So I'm gonna pause it and do a few more rows, and I will come back and show you what this stitch looks like. Okay, so I've done a few rows, and as you can see, you get this neat row of kind of, looks like a higgledy-piggledy bumps. And the back looks exactly the same. So now I'm going to show you how to do the stocking stitch. Okay, so I'm going to end this tutorial now, and the next one that I show you will be the stocking stitch. Otherwise, it will get confusing if I do too many at once. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.